Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Baschamania podcast. Or if this is your first time listening, great episode to pick as your first. This podcast, as wrestling is pretty much year-round. But usually once a year, things get hectic, and there's a natural time for a few weeks off. Not really time off in general, but time off from the podcast where I can focus on other things, such as my marketing agency. I run full-time, work at the house and the property, family. We got a 4-month-old, etc. And this year, it just happened to be end of May, early June. But we're back. This is season 4, episode 164. We've got a fun show on deck. Chenzo will also be coming back on soon with some news, and he should be coming back on starting more often, hopefully coming up here. So we'll dive into that in another episode, though. Today, back-to-back NCAA champion Nick Lee of Penn State joining the show once again. This should be a great conversation. Before we dive into that, I want to talk to you about Attack real quick. Attack is an app for athletes, ATAC, Attack. And it's for folks like you and I. It's just geared towards athletes, but it's an AI strength and conditioning coach, a nutritionist, a mentality mentor, all in your pocket. It's the best fitness workout app around, and it's built by wrestlers for wrestlers. And Nick Lee's on today. I'm a Penn State fan. He's a Penn State guy. All you Penn State fans listening, Brian Heller is behind Attack, who wrestled at Penn State. So you Penn State fans should definitely be checking out and supporting Attack. By the way, it's free. Download the app, use it. You'll love it. But it's your age, your goals, your program. Leverage Attack. Download the app and take advantage of it and their wrestlers. From Jordan Burroughs, shout out and congrats to my man Jordan. Just made his 11th World and Olympic team. Amazing. Peyton Prusen, Trent Hidley, all in the app. Sarah Hildebrandt. Come and level up with Attack. And guys, Attack is an amazing app. No question about it. But they're also just good people. I've been around this community for a while now and have worked with wrestlers, companies, athletes, clubs, you name it. Shout out Cowboy RTC. We just launched their website last week. Check out the Cowboy Wrestling Club's new website. But I've learned that there are some great people in this sport and there are some not good people in this sport. And thankfully, Attack are the good people. Actually thinking about having them come on the show soon to talk about Attack, or they started it, where it's going. So that should be fun. But for now, download the Attack app, ATAC. It's in the Apple app and the Google Play Store. Follow them on social. They're attack.app, ATAC.app. A huge thank you to Attack for sponsoring the show. I tweeted out a couple of weeks ago, but whether we do 10 episodes in a month or 2 episodes a month, they really don't care. They just want to be along for the ride. They want to be a part of the podcast. They want to support the podcast. So I'm truly grateful for Attack. So if you like this podcast, download Attack, give it a shot. It's ATAC in the Apple app and Google Play Store today. We are back with back-to-back NCAA champion Nick Lee. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm excited to be back and doing a show, and I'm excited for you to be the one. This is technically season 4.
Great.
Episode 1 of season 4, episode 164 overall. But I love having people like you on. Number one, obviously, I'm a Penn State guy, and I run into people, and they're like, you should have non-Penn State fans on them or non-Penn State athletes on. I'm like, I do. We've had people from every school on here.
You have had a bunch.
Right. Like, I made that Iowa post not too long ago. Like, I've had Spencer on, Kemmer on, Marinelli on. But, somebody like you, not only just that you're a Penn State guy, that's not why you're on here. As we develop a friendship and have conversations, that's why I started this podcast, to kind of bring those.
Yeah.
We're texting about the fans in the stands or lack thereof, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a bit about that. We'll talk a bit about senior, a bit about college. Let's go back a couple months, because I don't think we've done a show together since you won another national championship.
Nope.
What did you think overall of the tournament this year?
I thought it was really awesome. I think it's been like a couple years since we've had an actual national tournament. It feels like, right?
Yeah.
Not that 2021 wasn't a real national tournament, but just the lack of fans and stuff was a little weird. And then obviously the year before, no national tournament, so it was kind of like nature was healing. But it was really awesome. I think it went really well. A lot of upsets, obviously, as there usually is. And I thought it was just a good kind of showcase for what I thought was kind of the return of college wrestling from COVID. So
Yeah, and being like a marketing and branding guy, photographs are everything because
yeah,
you can really build the brand around photos
yeah,
in iconic moments. And one thing that I felt bad, specifically when you and Roman won
yeah,
in 2021, was amazing photos, no fans in the crowd.
yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in a little
Yes,
bit
we
because I
will, I'm
want to
sure.
dive into that.
Yeah,
But it did seem like that too. And the funny thing is about NCAAs, whatever you think is going to happen so often, it doesn't. Like for you, the big storyline heading into Big Tens was you, Rivera, and Ironman.
yeah,
And then you and Ironman don't end up wrestling at Big Tens, and then you wrestle, and then you don't end up wrestling at NCAAs.
yeah,
And here everybody's like, this is why, Shane Sparks is spot on. He
yeah,
hates doing preview shows. Like I
yeah,
literally talked to Shane for an hour, either Thursday morning or Friday morning in Detroit at NCAAs about how much he hates preview shows. Because he's
yeah.
like, anything you think is going to happen, just throw it out the window.
And that's like the story of the national tournament every year
Right.
too, right? So
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple different storylines there for you. One is when you're as a competitor, when you're watching something like Clark from UNC at 141 having a tournament of his life. What an amazing tournament. Do you like focus or care about that at all? Or whether it's Ironman, Rivera, Clark, whoever, doesn't matter.
it's interesting because I would think I would have a different answer early in my career than right now. It's interesting how like you kind of mature and stuff, but I would say like my freshman and sophomore year, I was big on like, oh, sorry, my dad's calling me. I got to hang up on him. But it's interesting. My freshman, sophomore year, I would have said that I really try to ignore all of that. And I just try to, block it out and focus on myself. And, I still do that to an extent. But I think, for me, as I grow in my wrestling skill and, in my mentality, it's almost like it's easier for me to kind of watch, my competitors and kind of appreciate, their journey as well. And it's really interesting. So, I would say just kind of watching him go through that tournament, it was really awesome. And it's a cool story. And I think it says, hey, like you can do, a challenging academic, you can be successful in a challenging academic environment and also be a successful wrestler. And also, I think sometimes there's this feeling, especially the way wrestling is going now, it's like the rich keep getting richer. And so it's nice to see, someone who maybe no one saw coming, come through and be a national finalist. I think that's really awesome. And I think, stories like that are important for the sport. And he had a heck of a tournament. That dude's a good wrestler. I think he's going to be wrestling for Germany, right?
Yeah, it's funny because Nomad posted something about all the world team trial qualifiers and how he's now qualified for the world team trials.
Yeah.
And Tony's like, no, he's not. He's German. He can't qualify for the U.S. team trials. He can't. Yeah. He's literally from Germany. Yeah. But it's funny because Burroughs posted something along what you're saying last night, talking about Chamizo. He's like, I used to really, really love watching Chamizo. And then we became competitors. I think it was ego or pride. That's like, you can't appreciate. And I can respect that because I don't follow UFC too much, but the two dudes that fought last night, last night, they beat the hell out of each other and they were smiling with each other after. And it's like, I'm not a fighter. I'm not a combat guy at all. Yeah. So for me, if I'm going to fight, my mentality is like, someone's coming after me or my family. So it's personal. Yeah. But when it's wrestling, MMA, whatever it is, like Bo was on here last month saying the same thing. Like, I don't necessarily want to hurt the guy I'm fighting. I just want to win because it's a competition. Yeah. But it was funny because one of the things you and I were talking about at NCAA's, I think it was at NCAA's, is we were talking about, I think the Ironman match or something. Yeah. And somehow Iowa's fans got brought up. Yeah. And your response was pretty cool because we were talking about it and you're like, I don't really care if they get too mad. Like they're one of the most passionate fan bases in the country. Whereas I feel like it's a common theme I'm seeing where, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, where the fans care more than the athletes because there's so much pride. And it's cool now, I think through social media, you can kind of see, you see wrestlers at different schools, how close they are. You know, I think like David Carr and Aaron Brooks, and you see this obviously different weights, but it's really cool to see that dynamic. For you, has it been like? Obviously, you came out on top against Ironman last couple times you guys wrestled, but I know how much rivalries like that help you to, iron sharpens iron. So that's helping you grow. What has that rivalry been like?
Yeah. I think everyone looks at, rivalries a little bit differently. And if you're someone involved in the rivalry, you look at it a little bit differently. And I just think, for me personally, anytime I'm, holding, negative thoughts or anything towards other people, I think that really comes back and harms me. Yeah. And so, I really try to keep the focus on myself, but at the same time, you're looking at wrestling some really good wrestlers. And so, you have to, always think about that. So, especially the higher level you get, you're really game planning a little bit more for certain guys. Right. So, I think it's been fun. I think, especially with me and Ironman, I think that brought like a lot of attention to at least the weight class in the sport. Right. So, that kind of thing is really good for the sport. People that aren't necessarily wrestling fans, will, have heard about, the rivalry or the match, and they're just like, oh man, like, I wonder who's going to win next time, yada, yada. So I think that stuff is just good for, everyone. And then if you're involved in it, it's good to keep perspective and, not get carried away, or get too emotional, and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. It's funny. Another one of the matches that did happen in NCAAs was you and Real Woods. It was actually your closest match. I think you won 3-2. Yeah. What was it like competing against Chenzo in the opposing coach's corner?
I just didn't want him to be a clown in the corner. I don't know. I got mad at him for something. He was yelling. Oh, he was yelling that I was grabbing the headgear. I was really mad at him yelling that. Like, dude, come on. So, but no, it was interesting. I didn't really think about it too much, but it's cool to kind of see, one of my teammates, in the corner, either with me or against me. Right. It's interesting, and it's cool to see him doing, some stuff that he loves to do. So I wasn't too worried about it.
No, it was cool though. I saw you run over there for the handshake real quick after the match. You're like,
I usually don't shake hands after the match. I don't know why. I just don't. It's not like I disrespect the other coach or anything. I just usually don't. But yeah, I saw Chins over there and wanted to go say hi. So, because everyone, whenever you're back in the tunnel, everyone has to mean mug each other. So I never get a chance to say hi.
I know it's funny being in that tunnel. I kind of hung out there a lot. I was going back and forth between press row and the tunnel the whole time with Zeb Miller. Amazing guy. I asked him if he wanted to hop on today. He couldn't. But he's going to be on here soon. He's such a nice guy. But when I was going on press row, he's like, look, at what you do is you look for the local media that doesn't show up. And then there you can have your seat. And it's easier. Because like if I'm trying to talk to people in between matches, you can't for the media, it was literally at the top of the arena, like the rafters.
Yeah.
So you can't go up there and do an article or create a graphic, whatever, and run down. So he was like, we went on press row. We're looking for somewhere to sit. And there was a local media that didn't show up. And right next to it is UNC's guy. Yeah. So I'm sitting next to him during your finals match.
Nice.
like, dude, I'm sorry. But he was cool. He didn't take it personal. Like, he also wasn't a wrestling guy. I was giving him like some pointers because it's like, what is that technically called? But a super awesome dude. So the last couple of years, there's this common theme, it seems, in your career where certain matches just don't happen. You and Pletcher was like, I feel like one of the most anticipated matches in 2020 when it got canceled. And then this year, all the rage was you, Ironman, and Rivera, how that will play out at NCAAs.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, if you had one more college match, do you have anybody in particular? For me, I would say you and Yanni, since you guys both won this year.
Yeah.
I'm not picking a guy there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that would be fun. We never actually we wrestled in college once my freshman year. I don't know. He may have still been redshirting. I was still redshirting. It was at the Binghamton Open, and he beat me. I forget what the score was, but that was our only college match. And
Yeah, he
so,
won 12-7, 2018. Wow, that
yeah,
was a
so
while ago.
we never wrestled each other in college. And there's a bunch of guys like it's interesting because I'll kind of look at my bracket and I'll think about kind of some of the guys throughout my career that have been at my weight class my whole career, or have been around my weight class my whole career, or even in my bracket every year. And I'm just like, man, I actually never wrestled that guy, but we've been like, right across from each other the whole time. So that's kind of interesting. But, and then there's guys that you wrestled probably like 5 or 6 times.
Right.
So, yeah.
So do you have one guy that you would, if you could have like a college all-star match, would it be Yanni?
I think that would be fun, and that would bring a lot of fans. So I think he would definitely have to be at the top of the list, if not near the top. And then I think like obviously a lot of people would, watch another, folk style Nick Lee Ironman match. Rivera, obviously incredible wrestler. I'm trying to think of who else was big matches. I think people would love to see the Pletcher Lee match again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, those were kind of some of the top matches. Yeah, those are all good picks.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it's funny too, now as you say that, like you have you competing for the US world team, you have competing to make the team, you have Clark, who's going to wrestle for Germany. You have Rivera, who's going to wrestle for Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how deep that weight is, like on a world level where, man, that's wild. Let me ask you this about NCAAs.
Sure.
Penn State goes 5 for 5 in the finals.
Yeah.
An amazing accomplishment.
Yeah.
What was it like for you when you watch Roman win? And, Roman Fix is an awesome kid. I feel bad that Roman beat him because he's such a nice kid.
Yeah,
but watching that energy, what is that like going into your match?
It's always nice at wrestling after Roman. I think we wrestled on the same mat the entire tournament. So I know it's like he always puts on a big show. So I never really have to worry about impressing the crowd because I know they're just going to be coming off a really big high. So it's nice. I think with all those guys, we put a lot of like work in with the team this year, just as far as getting our team, working together and, feeling like a team. And, we have a lot of different personalities and they ended up blending really well. And so, it was just kind of for me, it felt like a lot of work had paid off whenever, all those guys won. And it was just kind of like a perfect ending to my career, really. And I and it's not due to me, it was due to all these other guys' work. So, I'm really grateful for that. And, I hope I get to wrestle, after Roman consistently again at some point, but I don't know if that will ever be the case unless he goes into freestyle. I don't know if he's going to go into fighting. Everyone's wondering what his plan is. Only he knows. Maybe he doesn't.
No, he doesn't know. I talk all the time about it. I don't think he knows.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool if you guys were, 61, 65 wrestling back to back.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool. When it comes to 2 different questions I was going to ask at the same time, I got to separate them. So firstly, when, I feel like when Penn State won 5 in the finals in 2017, I want to say it was, and now they did it again. I feel like you get so attached to stars, and by the time they graduate, they're a star. And then when kids come in and are freshmen, it takes that time. And I feel like it takes, for the most part, I feel like it takes the entire career until maybe like their senior year is like the highlight reel or whatever. But those first 3-4 years, it usually feels like we're building. And it always seems like with successful sports teams, I don't care what sport, it feels like this is the best. It's never going to get better than this. Like
Yeah.
leaving the Penn State side of things, obviously you're going to stay in Western State College under the NWC, but leaving the Penn State side of things, like, do you see this happening again? Like 5 national champs?
Absolutely. I mean, I see having 6 national champs. I see having more. And that's always been, my personality. I think, you know, everyone is kind of like, oh, like you said, that like, oh, this is the bet. This is as good as it gets.
Right.
This is as good as it gets. But I mean, whenever we look forward at, who we have coming in and stuff, we're always thinking, more national champions. Right. So, while that was probably, for us, I think that we looked forward and kind of saw that happening. We also fell short in some areas, at the other 5 weight classes. So just being someone who is really loves the program, I'm really happy about my performance and stuff. And, I couldn't be happier. But at the same time, there's, the other in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, how do we score points at these other weight classes, and how do we get a national champ at 157, 125? How are we going to do that? And then now I'm thinking about, well, how are we maintaining a national championship at 141 now that I'm gone, right? So we're always kind of thinking about that. But yes, I mean, I see 6 national champs, 7 national champs, for it, and maybe it's not Penn State, and maybe it's further in the future, but I think it's one of the laws of nature that whenever you get some success in one area, that success is going to be further concentrated for a certain amount of time. So I see Penn State continuing to improve on 5 national champions, and maybe I'll eat my words, but
well, think about it, like to play the Penn State fan side of it. Carter, Brooks, and if Roman comes back, and Dean, right there, you have 4 returning national champs. Kirk is right in the mix.
He really is.
Like, he's right there in the mix.
Don't overlook him, because that dude is like, I mean, I don't know if people saw his match with Gable, but I mean, the score, I don't think necessarily reflected how close that match was. And but Kirk is really, really good, and so he's definitely in the mix.
And it's funny you say that too. One more thing I just thought of. At church this morning, Calvary Chapel West Side, best church on the planet, best pastor, Dave Tomaso, on the planet. But he was talking about how faith isn't just contagious, fear is contagious.
Yes, it is.
And when you start talking about a team dynamic, if people are scared or if people are down, that's just as contagious as faith and anything else. That when you talk about success or work ethic, those things are all contagious. Like, I love being around hard workers, and it's one reason why I love talking to guys like you who have had success in a completely different vertical than I have, because there's so many similarities to success in business, success in sports, which is actually the other question I wanted to ask you. For people listening to this who want to have that level of success, I don't care if it's wrestling success or if it's, outside of that. Back to back, you did something that very few people do. 10 people a year do. In the number of people who even make it to college wrestling is small, let alone win it. The level of success it takes to do that is unbelievable. What do you think has helped contribute to that success the most? Where if somebody's like, Nick, how can I emulate your success? Where would you point them?
I think that
besides telling them to go to Penn State.
Well, I think that is a nice first step. But I'm not necessarily a natural athlete or anything like that. Like, far from it. I was, I'm pretty clumsy with whenever I play, other sports. I really sucked at wrestling for, most of my early career whenever I was a kid. And, just kind of, I don't want to say I wasn't gifted, but, because I was gifted with, great parents and, a great upbringing, but, physically I'm nothing special. Right. And so I am now, but it's because of a lot of hard work. Right. But I think that number one is persistency. And I think, people kind of we touch on that as far as, a really good character trait whenever people are young, but persistency is really important. Failure is just, that's like the first step in success. And so I think, something about me is, whenever I lose or don't do as well, it's, I don't quit. I think about it sometimes, but I don't, right? Yeah. I, suck it up and keep going. And, that's just kind of the way it is. Right. So, whenever things don't go your way, focus on what you can control, being persistent. And then I think gratitude is also something that's very important. And gratitude is something that everyone's talking about now. And, we always have, but I think, taking a serious look at what is gratitude and, how do you express gratitude? That's something that, I'm always thinking about myself, right? You have all these people helping you, and, you're blessed in so many certain ways. So how do you, actually, act out gratitude? And, that's something that's hard to put into words. And I think it's different for everybody. But you do need to, think a little bit deeper, on that level. And then another thing I would say would be, as far as, the fighting spirit, the winning attitude, the positive attitude that people talk about with Penn State. It's not something that can be, it's not something you can fake, right? It's not like a fake it till you make it thing. It has to be authentic. So I think I would boil that down to just being yourself. For me, I've never been willing to try to, adopt the personality of someone who I thought was really successful, right? I'm not going to adopt Cale Sanderson's personality, and I'm not going to adopt David Taylor's personality. I'm going to be myself. And so, Cale Sanderson didn't get to where he was by, acting like someone else, right? He was himself, he was authentic. And so I think everyone, you really have to be yourself, and then, take your core values and apply that to what you do every day. And, that's not even, none of that has to do with wrestling specifically at all. Yeah. That's just in general. And so, I'm hoping that I can take those skills and character traits and apply them to other areas of my life. At least that's the plan.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you're spot on, because I try to work all those things into the success that I've had. And it's so crucial.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit from NCAA to the senior level. Yeah. You're now competing officially on the senior level, even though you had a hell of an Olympic trials last year.
Yeah.
You weren't
I don't know where that came from, but
you weren't going to compete even in the world team trials this year.
No. Well, and I got bored.
So that's what I was going to say. What happened? Like, you just...
I was in Mexico with Zane and Gilman, and they were competing in the Pan Ams.
Yeah.
And I was down there, and I was like, man, like, well, I'm a single guy. I live alone in State College, and I train a lot now. I don't have classes. And so, like, going on trips with my friends, basically, I know it's my teammates, but they're my friends too. That's a lot of fun for me. So I wasn't going to, I kind of wanted to maybe, take a little bit of time off after the college career and stuff. But I went to Mexico, and then we got back, and I was like, you know what, I might as well just go. All my buddies are going. I don't want to sit around at home and, rest of the college kids. So I decided to go, and, I don't want to take anything away from, like, the guys who were successful, because I did, prepare as well as I could. And, I'm not in bad shape or anything like that. So, I definitely wrestled well. But yeah, I think for me, I was thinking, well, my place is competing, beside my friends. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Do you have like an official... I know Roman was on here not too long ago. I believe he said you guys want to go compete in the fall, maybe. Do you have like a game plan already set?
Yeah, we're kind of... There's no set game plan. We kind of have a rough idea. There's a couple tournaments in Eastern Europe, and that's hard right now, obviously, because of what's going on in the Ukraine. So, everything is kind of up in the air, but we're looking at international tournaments to wrestle. And I think, as we enter that international scene, it's just good to compete, because, competition opportunities are limited. once you're out of college, and, maybe that's something you want to talk about. But so we just want to try to compete anywhere we can. But yeah, I think in the fall is a good spot to look. And obviously we have guys getting ready for the world championships and stuff now that will be helping get ready as well.
Yeah, it's just crazy, by the way, that the NLWC put 4 on the world team. And it's funny because we talk about Penn State 5 national champs out of 10. And here NLWC just put 4 on the senior world team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. We talk about potential for Penn State. The upside in the NLWC is just so crazy. Somebody, I laughed, a Penn State fan was tweeting about, will we see a full Penn State world team next year? And they basically listed it out, or a full NLWC. But the talent is there. I think that was the point of it, unless they were just dead serious. But what is it like being that, where it's amazing having the accolades you have already and being in a room where people are just, there's no stop. There's no like Olympic champs, world champs going for more. It's crazy.
I just don't believe sometimes like where I'm at in the room that I'm in and the people I'm around. Like I reflect, not daily as it should be, but probably every week I like sit and I'm like, holy cow, like I'm literally, going on trips and, side by side and working with Kyle Snyder, Cale Sanderson, David Taylor, all these Olympians, Franklin Gomez, all my coaches, I'm holy cow, like I'm with these guys, and, my goals are the same thing as their goals right now. And I just like stop, and it's kind of surreal. Like, I don't believe that, I'm just Nick Lee. I'm from, Evansville, Indiana. Like, what the heck am I doing here with these guys? So I get a little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes, but, it's kind of, it's like such a blessing. I can't believe that I'm there. And the thing about all those guys is, yes, they're extremely successful, but once you get to know them and like the level of human beings they are too, it's like even more incredible. Then I get even more imposter syndrome. I'm like, what the heck? Like, these are like superhumans, in every sense of the word, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And, here I am working with them. So I'm incredibly grateful. And it's something that it's hard to put into words really. And it's awesome. It's just going to be, a cool experience. And, I learn a lot from them every day, and hopefully I can pass that on to my kids if they ever come. So.
Oh, they'll come. Trust me. So you mentioned spiritual, and that's actually one thing I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Galatians 4:16 is in your Instagram bio, your Twitter bio. I know what it means. Talk about what it means. Not only the verse, but what it means to you.
So I don't have the verse memorized word for word, but it's along the lines of, because I've told you the truth, you are now my enemy. Something along those lines. And I think the idea is that truth is hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, initially I forget where I saw it, but it was interesting because I've always been someone that's pretty blunt with people. I'll tell them what I think, and a lot of times that doesn't make them happy. But it's always coming from a good place, right? And so I thought it was funny because sometimes you're honest with people and they don't want to be your friend anymore. So I think and then looking at it from the other side of it, I want to be perceptive whenever people are telling me the truth. Being a high level athlete, being someone who's successful, sometimes you're not getting enough criticism about things that you need to be criticized for. And so I am worried sometimes that I'm not, getting criticized enough. And so
go on the message boards.
Yeah, well, maybe I should, right? But I think it's by the right people too, right?
Correct.
So, and so sometimes whenever someone, says something that's a little bit critical, I get defensive. And, that's a little bit of my ego as well. And so for me, it's just remembering that if someone is being critical of you and, that they have your best interest in mind, don't not like them for that, take that, accept it, and try to work from it. And then also for me, it's kind of, it's a little bit of humorous for me because I just kind of know my own history with, telling people what I think and stuff. So,
Well, and that's another thing. It was really funny. We talked for like an hour on FaceTime one time because you were playing maybe Call of Duty. I forgot what it was.
it
But
was probably Apex Legends. Me and Chenzo were pretty good at that at one point.
so you were playing, and I think we had just messaged or something on
Yeah.
Instagram, and you accidentally video called me on Instagram. But we
Oh
ended up
yeah.
talking for an hour
Yeah.
because you'll go through times where you're kind of like me. You'll get more political with what you
Yeah.
share at times.
Yeah.
And I not only agree with all of your ideas, I think,
Yeah.
but you've always been someone to stand up for yourself. If
Yeah.
you believe something, you'll say it. And
Yeah.
you're not being offensive. You're not trying to, which kind of goes back to Galatians, but you're not trying to offend people. You're just standing up for
Yeah.
what you believe in. And especially in this culture we're in now, where so many people are afraid to be canceled, they're
Yeah.
afraid not to get an NIL deal, whatever it may be. How important is it for you to always stay true to yourself and to say what you want to say without too much worry of, maybe I don't get this deal, or what if this person doesn't like me? Just kind of staying true to
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, thankfully I'm in a position where, if I miss out on, some brand deal or something, it's not a huge deal. Right.
Yep.
And so I'm grateful for that. But, I think just being in the position I'm in is a blessing, and it's an opportunity for me to speak my mind. Right. And I think that, um, for me, if you have, you know, some thoughts and values that are important to you and you don't express those, or you keep them hidden, you're being deceitful, right? You're being deceitful to other people in the world. And um, that's why I've never understood, why you don't want to hear people's true thoughts, right? One of the foundations of our society and just a foundation of being a human being is, if I have an idea and I bounce it off of you, you need to be able to tell me whether that's a good idea or not, right? And so
Yep.
if I have an idea, I think it's a great idea, and I throw it out there and I get a lot of negative feedback, I can come back and say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong about that, right?
Right.
Versus if I keep those thoughts, hidden away and I'm never getting feedback on them, then, I don't know if that's a bad idea. I don't know if that's, something that's wrong. And that's just, for me, that's really important. I don't want to be deceitful with others. I don't want to be deceitful for myself. I'm always going to be honest. Right. And so I think we have to also be accepting of other people who maybe have different, beliefs, and say, you know what, that is completely contrary to everything that I believe in, I think is right. But can I think about why maybe they think like that?
Yeah.
Right. And so, for people that disagree with me as well, I'm never, get mad about why they believe that. I try to understand it. And then, you know, come back with, why I believe what I believe. Right. And so, without getting, too far into the details, I think being open about your beliefs, your values is extremely important. And we have to be able to compare and contrast our beliefs and values with people that are different than us. Otherwise, it's like we separate, but no one knows we're separating. And then that all comes to the surface before you know it, right? And you see it at a personal level too, right? You're friends with someone and you think you're great friends, and you're actually very different inside. You never pull that to the surface, talk about it, and before you know it, you guys aren't friends anymore, right? Because that all
Yeah.
comes to the surface at the same time. So it's a personal thing, it's a societal thing. But and just in terms of being, a morally sound person, a morally sound person, I think on everyone's metric is going to stand up for what they believe in, right? That's like basic. And so thinking, whenever you think about the person you want to be, do you want to be someone who hides your beliefs out of fear, or do you want to be someone who hides your beliefs, to get ahead in life, or do you want to be someone who, whenever they look back and think about you, do you want to be someone that where they say, you know what, he stood up for what he believed in? That's kind of what I think about. But just for every single reason, you should stand up for what you believe in, whether people agree with you or not, right? So, and I would say that for people that disagree with my ideas.
Yeah,
So,
and I think it's so important to be okay with disagreeing with people. It's so
yes.
important. Like, be
Yeah.
friends. Like, there's people who, if you don't think the same exact way politically,
Yes,
they hate you. They don't want to be friends with you. It's like,
I have some of my best friends from college, like my best friends. I would, if I was, on my deathbed, I would call them. They have completely different political beliefs than me, completely different. And it's just but they have the same values that I do of, being able to appreciate a person for, who they are and not, what they think about gas prices. So,
right. And I find myself, I don't know if this is just as I'm getting older now. I mean, I'm 37 years old. As when there's somebody who I know they're on the opposite end of the political spectrum as me, and they want to maintain the friendship as much as I do, I almost find more respect there than somebody who they're a friend of mine, but they think exactly like me.
Yeah.
That doesn't take as much courage sometimes as being friends with someone who thinks exact opposite of you and being able to have that dialogue. It's super important.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what, if we're going to be real, that's what the United States is built on, is people that disagree, coming together and having an understanding for a society, right? The societies that, crumble and the societies that, fall into violence and stuff are societies where, uniform belief is enforced. And I think that, historically that's just true. So, we have to appreciate each other's differences. And, people say diversity is our strength. That's true. And diversity of thought is part of that. And that's goes for, everybody on the political spectrum, because I know people that have, the exact same beliefs as me, and they're not as accepting of, people that have other beliefs. They're like, well, I don't want to be their friend. Well, that's not how this works, right? If you want something from the other side, you have to also give that in return. So that's just kind of what I think. And, I'm an optimist with people. I always see the best in them, probably to a fault. So that's just my personality. I want to connect with people.
Yeah. Yeah. We might need to start the political podcast next. That might be the next thing.
If you want to cut your viewership in half.
Oh man. Going back to wrestling, one thing that I wanted to talk about with you, not necessarily about your career, just talking wrestling a little bit, is the fan issue and the Final X issue. And I'll give my perspective and you can give yours.
Sure.
Because I haven't done a show since it. I was like appalled, and I know you were, because I saw your post at the World Team Trials, like watching the finals, and you're like glad everybody showed up.
Yeah.
I think, number one, that the World Team Trials process is too long. You go to the Open in Vegas to qualify, then you have to go to, in essence, the Final X qualifier at the World Team Trials. And then you have multiple dates of Final X, which I fell asleep and woke up twice. And it's crazy how long it is. I think that, number one, we need to go to smaller arenas, put the World Team Trials in a rec hall in Philly, and some of these smaller event venues where, going back to what we were talking about earlier, like seeing these big moments with no fans in the stands. I don't know your perspective from the athlete being on the mat, but just watching it, it's like, it's so lackluster. I'd rather, if we can't put people in the seats, take the seats away. We don't need that big of a venue. Go to a smaller venue, streamline the process. And, for Final X, I'd love to see men's freestyle, all the matches. Maybe that's one event, and then another event, women's freestyle, and then another match, Greco. I hate this interweaving them all. I want to watch all the men's freestyle matches. I want to watch all the women's freestyle matches. And I want to watch all the Greco matches. And on all three styles right now, I think we have the best talent we've ever had. There's insane men's freestyle matches. Some of these women's freestyle matches, honestly, the whole lineup.
I agree.
Was pretty dang good. I mean, Jenna in Jakara was, I'm so bummed for Jenna, but those types of matches, they can have its own event. Greco, Janjo Hancock, Kamal Bay, Braxton Amos with some college relevance in there. I think all three styles can have its own event, and you don't have to have this event on a Wednesday that starts at 2 and goes to 11. And I think that I talk about Final X because I think it's tied into that no fan thing. Like, I saw the wrestling diehards that went to New York City, not Oklahoma. They're not going to both.
Yeah. I have a couple of thoughts on it. And, I think everyone's going to have, their own idea, but I want to clarify, that post, that's not a dig at the fans, right? You can't force someone to go see something they're not interested in. Yep. Right. That was a dig, I think, probably a little bit at, the venue, the organizers, right? It's a great, like we talked about this. I was a great place for wrestling. My favorite duel, I think, ever in my whole career was this past year at Iowa, right? I mean, those fans are awesome. So, you can't, blame the fans for not showing up. It's obviously something they're not interested in. And so the question is, how do you build interest? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the interest for men's freestyle wrestling comes from collegiate wrestling, right? The reason why a lot of people are going to these men's freestyle events is because they want to see their college wrestlers. At Oklahoma State in Stillwater, where the Final X was, all those fans were there to see Jordan Oliver and Dayton Fix wrestle, right? Not all of them, but most of them. So that's just kind of a reality. One of the things I think about is if I'm a college kid, I haven't wrestled freestyle necessarily before. I'm getting towards the end of my career. Let's say I'm a junior. I just finished the national tournament. I'm not qualified for the World Team Trials yet. I have to go to the U.S. Open in a few weeks, and then I have to go and I have to place top 7 or whatever it is, and then I have to go to the World Team Trials, and then I have to go to Final X. And I just finished my college season. I'm ready to take some time with my family. I'm not going to do all that, right? And not only am I not going to do all that, but why would I go do all that? Because what's the compensation for me there, right? And I think wrestling's always been about the pursuit, right? It's not about the money, and it's not about, the fame or anything like that. But those are realities that you have to consider. And so, I feel like it's a little bit rushed after the college season. And I understand that, freestyle and college has to be separate. But the reality in the United States is that college wrestling will always be, the biggest event. And so you have to consider that, and you have to take that into account as you're making these, organizational decisions. People love to watch their college wrestlers wrestle, right? I mean, that's just the reality. So, I don't necessarily know exactly what the answer is. I understand that, historically there's been, less interest in Greco and women's freestyle. I think that's changing as people, start to see that intertwined with men's freestyle. So I think that has been helpful. And so I don't necessarily know if, splitting them up is the best, but I don't know. I think there's some answers out there. And then as far as the venue, right? I think you're right. If you see no fans up there, who the heck wants to wrestle in front of no fans? I certainly don't. I just got done with a career where I'm wrestling in front of thousands of fans. That is awesome. That is awesome. And so you have to figure out a way to make it interesting. Maybe you pick some more, smaller venues, but more, upscale venues. Maybe that's something, like theaters and stuff like that. That could be an option. Go to casinos and say, hey, like, you guys do nightly shows or whatever. Like, maybe let's make, a round of wrestling, part of your, nightly show or whatever it is. So there's
Brutus did that and they killed it.
Yeah, they killed it. Yeah, that's what I heard. And so I think it's you got to think outside of the box. I agree with you. You got to shorten the process a little bit to make the world team. I'm not learned necessarily on, how all that works, but we got to think outside of the box, and we know something has to change. And I think this year specifically, everyone kind of, saw that something needs to change. So I think that's the first step. That's a good step. And, I think like I said, I tend to be an optimist. I think they're going to see that. They're going to start making some changes. And hopefully it's to everyone's liking. So
Yeah, and it's a blessing and a curse that the U.S. is so dang good.
Yeah,
because it's a blessing for obvious reasons. The curse to that is when you have an event like the World Team Trials Qualifier Tournament, you don't see Snyder, you don't see Gilman, you don't see Burrows, you don't see all of the stars that make you want to tune in. And that's one of the fun things about NCAA is, and for anybody who says that the reason World Team Trials and US Open don't have fans is because it's freeze on that folk style, you don't know how the world works, because this is all about the college casual fan. They want to root for a team. And one of the things about NCAAs that's so fun is everybody's there. You can see the upsets. You can see, will the number one hang on and win? Who goes on that run? Who pulls off those upsets? It's fun. So if the fan sizes or if the athlete pool is going to be smaller and you can't draw that big of a crowd, go talk to my friend named Kevin in Philadelphia, who will devote his next year of his life to getting people in the Palestra. I forgot how to pronounce it, but
I think that's how you say it.
Like, he will pack that place. Like, there are passionate people, and Iowa's a great wrestling community, but you hit the nail on the head. When their college fan who's tuning in to see, will we win the national championship? Where are we against Penn State? They're tuning in for all these storylines. If you take those all away and it's just a couple of their guys wrestling, I also think, and I don't know either what the 100% answer is. I'm sure Willie has the perfect answer.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You need to kind of maybe choose this closer to timing. And I know it takes time to plan the events, but based on who's going there, if all the Iowa stars were there, there's definitely more people that are going to be there. So, no matter what, you're never going to have the perfect scenario, this and that, but there's little things that you can do that way too many empty seats. Let's take some away. These towns that have massive, even when the World Team Trials was in North Carolina a couple years ago at NC State, they packed that place. Those fans wanted to see that. So, I definitely think the process, and, for me, the final X thing was like, I don't know if it's OCD, whatever. I'm just so consistent. I want to see everybody in a row who makes the men's freestyle team, everybody in a row who makes the women's freestyle team.
Yep.
And I'll honestly probably even watch the Greco, because we do have more Greco talent right now, I think, than we ever have. I mean, when you have matches like Hancock and Braxton Amos, I'm tuning in every time for that. So we have the talent pool.
I agree. Even if you put them on 3 mats going on at the same time, I think that's fine.
Yeah. So I don't know. What is it like for you when you're, obviously it's about, you just said it's about the destination, or it's about the journey there.
Yeah.
But, it is a reality that you go from wrestling at the Little Caesars Arena, which is packed from top to bottom. The rafters are filled with media. The floor is filled with people, and every seat is filled. And there's people rooting for you, rooting against you, rooting for the stories. And then you go to an empty arena, and it's like, man.
I mean, what are the stakes? You know what I mean? That's what you have to ask. And, obviously, the reason people want to wrestle to make a world team is because they want to be the best in the world. And that's going to come with, some reward. If there was, no reward other than, oh, I'm the best in the world, there's no fame, there's no, money, anything like that. Why would people do that? Right. So they would devote their time being the best at something else that's a little more rewarding. Right. So there is a reward. There is, a light at the end of the tunnel. But the beginning of that tunnel is not looking so great. So, I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily know what the answer is coming off of the college career where there is, so many fans. I'm adjusting, and I'm going to have to adjust, I guess. But, like I said, there's got to be stakes. I mean, Iowa fans, whether I'm a great wrestler, whether I wrestle Iowa style, I wrestle at Penn State, they are going to cheer against me no matter what. Yeah. Right. And then if you go to, these men's freestyle events, it's a lot of, wrestling fans, and, they're usually pretty educated about the sport, and, they appreciate the sport. but they're not going to hate any wrestler, and they're not going to cheer against you. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's, healthy or, the best way to go, but it's part of the fun of college wrestling is that, man, like Iowa, they hate Penn State and they're going to go do everything they can to beat Penn State. Right. That's awesome. And so that's what brings people in. It's, a big rivalry, right? We talked about rivalries earlier. That's something that is really good for the sport. And so, and I don't think negative attitudes about it are helpful either, right? I think we all understand that it's not where we want it to be. And so let's, have a positive attitude and say, okay, let's think outside the box. Let's do things we haven't done before. And let's figure out, how we can really, pull college wrestling fans to men's freestyle wrestling. I don't think it's going to be easy. But, you got to do it bit by bit and figure out, and we can't take steps backwards. So.
No. And I think too, it's important. Glad you said that. It's important that, I feel like we keep bringing everything full circle. Criticism is good, but your tone and how you say it, that's why, like, as soon as I started seeing people talk about the fans, I'm like, I'm going to put out an article with why I think this, something value to contribute. And anybody can go to medium.com, a million other resources, and put up anything you want on the internet and send everybody you want a link. So I think it's great that if you don't like something, contribute your ideas. Yeah. And that's why I had said, I can only speak to me in the case of why I didn't go, let's say, to the World Team Trials. I would have loved to go, but I looked at the travel. There was long flights with layovers that I'm like, number one, at the time, my son was 3 months old. I have a 3-month-old, and it's like wrestling is a hobby for me that I try to give back to the sport, and I consume it as a fan. It's very hard to justify traveling all day Friday and all day Monday to go sit in an arena Saturday and Sunday. And we're going to do that because we love wrestling, but we're only going to do that so much. And when I just went to Detroit and left my newborn son from Wednesday to, I left Saturday night. I think I was standing with you with my suitcase in the tunnel because I'm like,
I remember that.
I got to get home to my son, like my wife, like this is too long. So I think like that taste was in my mouth a little bit. And again, he's so young. My wife wanted to come. She loves wrestling, but it's like when you have all this travel, I got to basically sacrifice 4 days for a hobby.
But we won't hold it against you.
But it's like if the travel was easier, like I suggested Philly. I'm okay with a 1-hour flight early Saturday morning, stay over Saturday night, fly home Sunday night. Something easy like that, I'm there. For me, my preference, and I think that if you take away travel time and you make traveling smaller, the travel time smaller, I think more people can justify it. Mm-hmm. Because like if I can fly to Philly and fly home Sunday night, that's an extra 2 days of a hotel I don't need. That's shorter travel time. I don't have to sacrifice 2 days of work. It's like, so I do think we need to put them in cities that are more easily accessible.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would have to agree.
The Penn State drive for me is 3.5 hours, so I don't mind that one.
that's easy.
I'm sure you wouldn't mind it being anything.
Well, my parents drive like 8 hours for every duel. So,
are you in Indiana now?
I'm in Evansville right now. That's my hometown. My parents don't actually live here anymore. They moved to Michigan, but I did a camp for my club. I did a clinic at one of the local high schools. So I'm in Evansville right now, just kind of hanging out. I always stay with one of my high school buddies. So, yeah.
By the way, last thing, and I'm going to let you go enjoy the Sunday.
Sure.
You're in Evansville. Made me think of the dealership commercial you did. How cool is that for you?
That was really cool. That was kind of the first, thing that I did as far as NIL goes. And, I'm not obviously bound by NIL anymore. So, I'm working with I'm working on a couple different projects right now, and I can go over those. But that was really cool. It's people that, I trust and I've worked with before, right? It's, a family friend. The guy's name is Eddie Gable. And, we're friends with the Gables. There's a lot of Gables in Evansville. It's a very German area. So people in Evansville won't know which Gable I'm talking about, but, it's people that I trusted. Yeah. So I think that was really cool. And so we did it all, by the books and everything, but it was, a fun project. And I think people think of NIL and they're like, oh, I'm going to do these big deals. I think for me, it was nice to, be able to do something for, in my hometown for, my friends and, people that look at me and, see someone that, they trust as well. So I think, it's cool to be able to give back in that way.
Yeah. What projects are you working on right now?
I'm working with a company called Compel. And you can go to getcompel.com if you're interested in learning about it. It's a topical skin and surface cleanser, and it's a really incredible product. It's all natural. It's plant powered, and it's a really incredible product. I mean, it's done all kinds of things for me. I had a big old ringworm before the Big Tens, and I didn't go see my trainer, and it got rid of that in 2 days. I think if you go to their website, you can see what traditional mat cleaner does to your mats and what Compel does to your mats. Traditional mat cleaner does not totally clean your mats. I mean, there's all kinds of gunk on there. So it's a really good product. I would encourage, coaches and parents to go see it. I saw a kid at clinic on Friday that had like 4 massive ringworms. And I was just like, what? Like, you're letting him come home like that? So I would encourage people to go check it out. And then we're in the very early stages of this, but my dad and I are starting an apparel line. So I can't share too much, but we're in the very early stages. We're pretty excited about it. It's been a fun project to work on. So, yeah.
We might have to have on the BASCH solution side a little conversation about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I can't wait to see what you do professionally. Outside of wrestling, you're a great human, and I know it's been fun for me to watch wrestlers with success in their personal lives that I know, because that success, those traits like you talked about, it's not like you told everybody wake up at 5 o'clock and practice your double leg shot 100 times. Like it's character traits, and those trickle over to success out of the mat. So I'm excited for that, man. So that's all I got for you.
I appreciate you having me.
Enjoy your Sunday in Evansville. And by the way, one more point on competitors being like respect of each other. I love the quick exchange yesterday where you texted me a kid in Evansville wearing Yanni's squirrel shirt, and you're like, send this to Yanni. I sent it to Yanni. Yanni's like, Nick Lee's the man.
Well, I'll tell you, like, it's interesting because me growing up, I would not have known like any college wrestlers or anything. You know what I mean? So it's, for me, just in my college experience, I feel like college wrestling has now received so much more attention in Evansville, Indiana, and which is my hometown. And so that's like really awesome for me to be able to see that, not only are people just, Penn State fans now, but they're just getting involved in college wrestling in general. And like, liking watching college wrestlers that are really good. And so for me, just seeing my hometown is, a lot of people stick around. It's a wonderful town to raise children in. It's a great town to grow up in. But not a lot of people had kind of, Division I college aspirations. And so I always like to see now, maybe kids they're looking a little bit higher than maybe they would have before. So, that's awesome for me to see.
It's also cool just to see wrestling get that attention where fans are being created, and I love, like, I think that's one area where NIL kind of opened up doors, because when you're watching you, Yanni, others, and then you can go buy a shirt right away. Like, you don't have to wait another year to buy a Yanni shirt now. You can get one at that kid's age. Yeah. And, I think that creates more interest, because now you're that much more loyal. You're that much more invested. You're not going to buy a Yanni shirt and now not watch him next year. Exactly. Or if you buy a Yanni shirt and then he's competing at the trials, at this, at that, the world championships, you're that much more likely to follow that person. So I do think NIL has done. Are you still selling your shirts?
So the online store was closed for now. And I just ran out of my physical copy. So they're selling really well. So I'm working on getting some more out there. So for those that missed it, we'll have more on the market soon.
Yeah. So make sure you're following Nick on Instagram, and Casey finally got you on Twitter. I'll link up in the description Nick's Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you're following.
I don't even know my handles, so thank you.
I love it. All right, Nick, I will speak to you later, man. Thanks for making the time today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Awesome. See you, man.
And the beat goes on.